Hey Canelo, if the WBC asks you to either fight Golovkin next or give up the belt, what do you do?
Ready.
You ready? So we're gonna see Golovkin in May or what?
Ready.
There it is.
Don't fans want to see good fights and competitive fights? You know, so we're gonna continue doing what we're doing, and that's pleasing the fans. That's the bottom line.
Oscar, can I just ask you, you've said in the whole promotion you want the best to fight the best, and clearly this fight was almost sold as the winner fights him, and now all of a sudden, we'll see if he fights him next. I mean, the fans are all talking about wanting to see that GGG fight. How do you rationalize putting on another fight as opposed to the fight that the fans
I'm not saying he's gonna fight somebody else. I'm not announcing anything. I'm gonna let him rest. We're gonna talk about it. Is he gonna fight Triple G? Absolutely, of course.
Dante's Boxing Nation, what's going on, guys? Well, I have some very breaking and shocking news that was just released this morning. The middleweight champion of the world, Canelo Alvarez, and Golden Boy Promotions have decided to face Amir Khan for May 7th this year. That is not a joke. I'm not being sarcastic. That is who Canelo Alvarez is facing in May. You want the good news or the bad news first? You know what? Let's start with the good news since there's not a whole lot of it. The good news is, for as long as this fight will last, it will be entertaining. Okay? It will be entertaining. There will be a level of drama in this fight. That is the good news. And that's pretty much the only good news there is. Unfortunately, the bad news is there's a whole lot more bad news than there is good news. Allow me to elaborate. Before I give you my thoughts, let me first go ahead and read what Canelo Alvarez had to say about this announcement. As the middleweight champion of the world, I will take on the best fighters in the sport on Cinco de Mayo weekend. I look forward to making the first defense of my titles. Amir was a decorated amateur, a two-time world champion, and is in the prime of his career. Fans are in for a great fight on May 7th. End quote. Guys, this move from Oscar De La Hoya and Canelo Alvarez is so hypocritical. It's beyond belief. Let's just start with saying this. You mean to tell me, when we already have fights signed like Keith Thurman versus Sean Porter, Andre Ward moving up in weight to fight the undefeated Sullivan Barrera, the #1 mandatory Cuban sensation, Sullivan Barrera. He's already signed a deal to fight Kovalev after that. Deontay Wilder is negotiating a fight with Alexander Povetkin. In fact, they had already started negotiating before the Spilka fight. Even Leo Santa Cruz is saying that he wants to fight Gary Russell. And Gary Russell in return says he wants Leo Santa Cruz. According to Leo Santa Cruz, he said that that fight will most likely happen this year. Now, I gave you guys some fights that are going to happen for sure, and I gave you some fights that are on the table. You notice what all of those fights have in common? All of those guys are pursuing a fight in their own division, and they're trying to fight one of the best fighters in their division. So while those fighters are trying to do that, Who is Oscar De La Hoya and Canelo Alvarez facing next? Amir King Khan. It was almost comical when Canelo started off his speech by basically saying, as the middleweight champion of the world. This is how he starts off his speech when it comes to announcing this fight. As the middleweight champion of the world, you're going to fight not only a welterweight, but a welterweight with one of the weakest chins in the junior welterweight division, and a welterweight that just moved up to the welterweight division from junior welterweight. Did anybody watch the Canelo versus Cotto fight? Cotto is a junior middleweight, and Canelo made Cotto look like he was a featherweight. That's how big Canelo Alvarez is. Canelo Alvarez came in the ring so big, he had to be at least 20 pounds, no less than 15 pounds bigger than Cotto. Cotto was so small that he would throw punches at Canelo, and Canelo was damn near just laughing like, God damn, this dude is smaller than I thought. No, he ain't smaller than you thought, Canelo. You way bigger than he thought, and a lot of us did. That's what it is. So if Canelo can make a junior middleweight look that damn small, how small is he gonna make a welterweight who just moved up to welterweight? This is ridiculous, guys. This is ridiculous. And quite frankly, it's offensive. The reason why I say this is offensive is because you decafs are the ones that will sit here and try your best to discredit anyone on the coincidental list, like Al Heyman, saying that he puts on shit matches and, you know, he's just a disease to the sport of boxing and et cetera, et cetera. That's all he does is puts on terrible matches. In fact, I remember before the Garcia-Guerrero fight, which broke records damn near, okay? It was reported that 6.2 million people either watched part of or the entire telecast when it comes to Garcia versus Guerrero. The numbers averaged at a consistent 2.5 million views, and the numbers peaked at 3.5 million views in the main event. Those are big numbers, so that fight was a success. But before that fight, I remember reading an article, or at least I was, scanning through the article, and this writer, actually the article was announcing the Porter versus Thurman fight. And just to jab at the Garcia-Guerrero fight, in contrast, this guy who writes the article, he says, this Thurman versus Porter fight is a great fight. Not like this terrible mismatch, garbage fight. I threw in the garbage word, but you know what I'm saying. He said, not like this terrible fight that we're going to watch this weekend, Garcia versus Guerrero. Right? So he completely tried to trash Garcia versus Guerrero, and that fight turned out to be a complete success. Not only was it a success numerically and financially, but it was competitively successful. You see, unlike Canelo versus Khan, the underdog in the Garcia-Guerrero fight was Robert. But Robert was the big, strong guy in the fight. And it was Danny Garcia that was moving up in weight, and he had to deal with someone bigger than him for the first time. It is the contrary with Canelo versus Khan. Canelo is the middleweight champion, and he is fighting a welterweight who is known for having chin issues. This is unbelievable news. I go back to the contrast when it comes to Al Haymon. Guys, can you imagine if Oscar De La Hoya and Canelo Alvarez were on the coincidental list? Can you imagine the outcry there would be right now? Where are those comments at? You know the comments. Al Haymon is destroying the sport. Fighters like Floyd Mayweather are cherry pickers. They just want to protect their record. They just want to protect their health. Safety first. Where are all these comments at? He's a chicken. He's a coward. He's a runner. Andre Ward is not going to fight anyone because he's scared. He's pulling out of fights because he's afraid. Where are all these comments at when this news is released? You know, once again, this news is just so offensive in so many ways to boxing fans because, once again, Canelo Alvarez is the middleweight champion of the world. But he fights at 155 pounds. He's fighting 3 times this year, according to reports. And I said this in previous videos. I said it would be a damn shame if Canelo fights 3 times this year and he doesn't end up fighting either Gennady Golovkin, the best fighter at 154, Demetrius Andrade, a rematch with Erislandy Lara, Jamal Charlo, hell, even Vanes Manarosian at worst case scenario. These are all real matchups for Canelo Alvarez. And Julian Williams. And then you also have Eric Walker. Eric Walker, who just pulled off an upset and beat the undefeated Chris Pearson. These are the best fighters from middleweight down to junior middleweight. If we once again have fights like Thurman versus Porter, Deontay Wilder versus Povetkin, and many, many more fights that are already pretty much done deals, Ward versus Barrera. If those fighters are willing to fight the best in their division, why is Canelo Alvarez fighting against Amir Khan? Do you know how weak of an opponent this is? This is such a weak opponent that not even Keith Thurman and Sean Porter were targeting Amir Khan. Even they were targeting tougher opponents, which was each other, right? Now, this is not to say that they still wouldn't want that fight, but that would be more of a understandable matchup to make. Thurman versus Khan or something like that. They're in the same weight class. But Thurman versus Porter is a step up from Thurman versus Amir Khan. You know, when I talked to Golden Boy matchmaker Eric Gomez, shouts out to Eric, very cool guy, very nice guy. You know, I sat down and I talked to him. Matter of fact, I'll either add the clip into this video or I'll add the link to that interview. But I asked him, with him being the matchmaker and everything, I said, you know, when it comes to Canelo Alvarez, when is he going to fight the best fighters at 154 since he fights at 155? Like a Demetrius Andrade, like a, Jamal or Jamal Charlo. And you know what he said to me? He said, we don't want to put Canelo in the ring with a guy who's just going to run. That's what he said. We don't want to put Canelo in the ring with a guy that's just going to run all night. We want entertaining fights. This is what Golden Boy Matchmaker said to me. Now, what's so hypocritical about that comment is We just seen Canelo in the ring with Cotto. And we all know Cotto moved and danced in the ring all night. We all know that Khan, he moves in the ring more than Cotto does. So that is a complete contradiction to say you don't want to get in the ring with guys that quote unquote run. No, what you mean is you don't want to put Canelo in the ring with someone that can beat him. That's what you really mean. It's okay to run as long as you have a weak chin and you're 2 divisions smaller. Then you could run, you could jump, you could do whatever you want to do then. Because we all know realistically, Demetrius Andrade, he doesn't even use a lot of foot movement in the ring. In fact, when Demetrius Andrade fought against Vanes Martirosyan, it was Demetrius Andrade that was the aggressor. So that's a ridiculous excuse to make. Now, I don't blame this on Eric Gomez. I mean, he's doing his job. His job is to protect and hold Canelo Alvarez's hand. That's his job. Hold his hand when he walks him across the street. Because Canelo Alvarez is not on no Keith Thurman, no Sergey Kovalev, no Andre Ward level. This is what Golden Boy is basically telling the public. Now, for some of you guys that will say, come on, Dante, this is just a tune-up for the Gennady Golovkin fight. Guys, if this was a tune-up for the Golovkin fight, first of all, let's just look at the opponent. Why would you be fighting a welterweight who fights the complete opposite way that Golovkin fights? If you were looking for a tune-up for Golovkin, you would fight someone who has a style a little similar to Golovkin, number one. Number two, if Canelo and Golden Boy, if they were planning on fighting Golovkin next, they could have did what Andre Ward and Sergey Kovalev did. They could have already signed a deal to fight by the end of this year, assuming that both fighters win. How come they haven't done that? Because they don't have any plans of facing Golovkin this year. That's why. Now, if Canelo Alvarez decides to fight Golovkin, I will give him all the props in the world, and I hope that he does. But once again, if that's the fight that Golden Boy and Canelo wanted, they would be negotiating right now. Understand something. Just because you have a fight signed doesn't mean you can't sign a deal to fight someone after that. Deontay Wilder was negotiating with Alexander Povetkin before he fought Spilka. Once again, going back to Andre Ward and Kovalev, they've already agreed to fight, right? Matter of fact, even Canelo Alvarez negotiated a deal to fight Miguel Cotto before he beat James Kirkland. So they already know how this works. And if they've done it before, they would have did it when it comes to Gennady Golovkin. Why haven't they did it? Because they're not thinking about fighting Golovkin. Because Oscar De La Hoya deep down doesn't believe that Golovkin or Canelo can beat Gennady Golovkin. In fact, when I was at the, the Canelo versus Cotto press conference in California, you had all these Canelo Alvarez fans with Canelo shirts and Canelo bands on their head and everything. And I asked them point blank, who wins, Canelo or Golovkin? Even the Canelo Alvarez fans were picking Golovkin to win the fight. What does that tell you? That tells you that Oscar De La Hoya, he sees things the exact same way these fans see it. Now, me personally, I think Canelo has a very good chance of beating Gennady Golovkin because Golovkin has never been in a ring with someone like a Canelo. I mean, I'm not making a prediction because that fight is far away from coming to fruition. But still, I believe Canelo has a damn good chance in that fight. But for now, that's pretty much all I got. Oh yeah, and one more thing before I end this video. Just in case you guys didn't know, this fight is going to be on pay-per-view. Not on CBS, like Thurman versus Porter is. Not on Fox TV, like Garcia versus Guerrero was. This fight is going to be on pay-per-view, not free TV. That's all I got. I'm on to the next one.
This is Bobby, and you're watching Dante's Boxing Nation.